Now, the chiropractic industry is under fire today, with some demanding dodgy practitioners be pulled into line.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ryan Lee, and I specialize in holistic chiropractic care.
Chiropractic care is an alternative form of treatment for nerve, muscle, bone and joint problems. Chiropractors believe hands-on treatment of the spine, dubbed spinal manipulation, is an effective tool for fixing back pain. But not everyone's up for the crack. Today, some want the head of the Chiropractic Board of Australia to be sacked for not cracking down on shonky chiros, making claims like their treatment helps diabetes, prevents caesareans and even cures cancer.
It's certainly unethical, but it's also against the law. I think it's a reflection of the fact that the regulatory authority really isn't doing their job. Their basic approach is to write a nice letter to guys telling them not to do it anymore, and yet it keeps on keeping on.
One Aussie website even claimed Chiro has healed every life-threatening illness and every kind of degenerative disease.
The agency has confidence in the Chiropractic Board of Australia and does not believe there is any reason for the board to be sacked.
But these concerns aren't new. Last year, the head of the Chiropractic Association of Australia stood down after she allegedly admitted to sneaking into hospitals to perform chiro on newborns.
Chiropractors going into hospitals to treat newborn babies, I think, is particularly reprehensible. And certainly there is no evidence that that sort of treatment benefits the baby.
The popularity of chiros are on the rise, with more than 250,000 Aussies seeing one every week. And it's easy to see why.
Whether you're dealing with a stiff neck, migraine headaches, whatever.
Well, we reached out to the Chiropractic Association and the Chiropractic Board of Australia, as well as 10 different chiro clinics accused of misleading patients. None were available to speak to us. Instead, we're joined by chiropractor Simon Floriani. Simon, it seems like there are two camps in the chiro world. There are those who think that it's good for treating back and neck pain, and then there are those who claim that it's helpful for all sorts of things like diabetes and asthma and even cancer. So which camp are you in?
Oh, I think I'm in the evidence-based camp. You know, there's all sorts of effect you can have on the body when you work on it, but you know, you make wild claims, you're really on slippery ground, and no registered health practitioner in Australia is going to do stuff like that and be considered a decent practitioner.
Simon, where do you stand on using chiro on kids?
Look, I work on babies every day, so you know, babies respond tremendously to chiropractic treatment. Now, that's not to say we cure whatever presentation you might think is a diagnostic term, but babies and children and human beings respond to health and healing. I'm not going to make those claims. I try my best, like every practitioner tries their best, but you don't make wild claims.
Simon, I've got to admit, I considered it for a moment with my little girl Evie when we were having some trouble, and I had friends. I think, Pete, you had said that you tried it and it worked and it was effective.
Yep, absolutely.
But I couldn't bring myself to have someone pushing and prodding my little baby and manipulating her spine. And when I looked at what the AMA say, they say that, you know, you wouldn't do anything to a young person without significant levels of quality evidence. And in this case, there isn't significant levels of quality evidence that it does anything on babies, and if it's not effective, why would you mess with a little baby?
Yeah, look, you know what? I hear you, and I totally agree. We provide evidence-based products in literature and education around the world, my wife and I. And look, I put it out to the public, and I put a video up of me adjusting a baby. It had 250,000 views in under 2 months. People are hungry to see what it is that chiropractors do, and we don't twist babies' necks.
Watching something doesn't mean that there's evidence that it's effective or that it's, you know, that it's worked.
Yeah, but evidence is, in its first and basic form, it is about the consumer. And it's about the case study, and from that you build better evidence, which might be a group, and then you build the robust evidence. You've got to remember that the British Medical Journal says that there's an 11% effectiveness rate in all medical procedures. So no one can say they're doing the greatest job in the world because there's just not the evidence there. But does that mean we stop? You know, there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that knee surgery and arthroscopy even works, and yet there are thousands of them done every day. Right. So you've got to be very careful swinging the evidence brush.
Well, no, but the evidence brush is kind of the thrust of it, isn't it? I mean, and when it comes to healthcare, sorry, it doesn't begin with the consumer. It begins with peer-reviewed evidence, peer-reviewed studies. If the AMA is saying that there isn't enough quality evidence to do this, when we're talking specifically about kids and babies here, wouldn't actually the responsible thing to do be not to do that until that evidence emerges and not to say that it's something that people should do?
True evidence-based practice starts with clinical case studies, which is, oh my gosh, I did this on you and it works. it worked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a collection of 10, 15, 20, 50, and you build evidence-based research to further the profession that you're in or to further the research base.
Simon, thanks very much for your time.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
It's a tough one. I know many friends that go to chiros. I think if it's an adult, it's one thing. But when you're talking about babies, I think as a parent, you do want to know there's evidence. You do want to know it's safe. I mean, if you've got some claiming that they can cure babies of, kids of autism, and others, saying they can cure of cancer, you're kind of as a parent going, well, which ones are true and which ones aren't?
Well, I think that's a dangerous area. I mean, there are charlatans in every industry. There's no doubt about that.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Just want to get something out before you move on. I should point out the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency has specifically recognised people who make those sorts of claims and has referred a lot of those hardline people to the ACCC. So there are things cracking down on those more extravagant claims.
But those claims are still being made. I mean, that's why we're doing the story tonight.
That's true, but there is a crackdown. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing a chiropractor for myself for over 25 years. I had an issue where I was getting, basically seizures down the left-hand side of my body. I went to a doctor. They wanted to put me on epilepsy drugs. They wouldn't say it was epilepsy. It would have had a massive impact on my life. Went to a chiropractor, it was sorted out.
Yeah.
And it has been ever since. I took my kids along because I trusted the chiropractor and they were having some sleeping issues. Then they weren't having sleeping issues.
Yeah.
So that was based on also my experience with my own chiropractor and friends who also had babies gone through. And when I say babies, probably toddlers.
But that's a fundamental, it's a bit like they say about GPs, everyone can be critical of doctors generally, but not my GP. Well, there are lots of great experiences with chiros. I mean, I've had a great experience too, as it happened, but that doesn't mean, for me, that this argument that you start with the consumer and don't have peer review.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that is cloud
the claim, I can't deny your experience, but there is a difference between anecdote and evidence, right? People will say that I had essential oils and that changed my life. People will have all sorts of stories, and I can't deny them, but it's just different to doing medical research, and I just got a feeling with health, that's where I'd begin. Anyway.
Old-fashioned, but yeah,
I know,
science is a plus, isn't it?
Anyway.